Today we're looking at the financial astrology from the full moon in Aquarius that we just had on the 19th of August all the way through to the 2nd of September when we are going to have a new moon in Virgo. If you're new here, welcome to Star Bites. This is where I like to use the art or analysis of financial astrology in the crypto markets, in particular looking at Bitcoin today. I like to look at Bitcoin, as do majority of financial astrologers, as that really sets the tone then for the rest of the crypto market. Even though then each altcoin has its own thing, but let's stick with Bitcoin for now. Towards the end of this video as well, for the Astro lovers, I'll give you a little bit about the upcoming new moon in Virgo and some personal things that you can use to make the most of that moon. We have some really interesting cosmos happenings during this time. And if you missed the personal tips on the full moon in Aquarius that we just had, make sure that you connect with me on Instagram and you head into my channel called Moon and Money Blasts. Also, if you have not yet checked out the video with myself and Jack, where we talk about the major astrology that we have coming up until the end of 2024, make sure that you check that out. I'll have that somewhere in here or down here. Okay, so let's dive in and talk about what we saw from the last video. So here we're looking at the daily time frame. For those that are new here, remember that financial astrology is a very macro view. It takes a lot of time. It takes time for the moves to play out with financial astrology. That's why even though I'm here looking or showing you guys the daily chart, honestly, I prefer to look at it on the 2-day or even the 3-day time frame for the full energy to play out of particular aspects. This full moon in Aquarius, or really just around this time, has been so interesting. Mercury retrograde. This one that we're in right now is a tough Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde is really a time where you just expect the unexpected. You may be feeling like even your technical analysis is not going fantastic during this time. You may feel some sort of confusion. Maybe your emotions are some sort of way. That is Mercury retrograde. A lot of financial astrologers, even astrologers that follow the stock markets, were expecting more of a down movement around this full moon, as the astrology really did not look great. So it's been really interesting to see Bitcoin hold itself up during this time. I mean, we're happy either way, right? It stays up, continues to go up, we're happy. Goes down, more opportunity. So when you have the long-term vision of Bitcoin, then we're happy either way, right? But another thing is, while we're talking about this macro view, I really like to wait out after the new moon or full moon at least 24, 48 hours, sometimes up to 72 hours to really watch everything play out. So that's why I wanted to wait a couple of days to put a new update for this very reason. Now we can see that this Mercury retrograde has just been ugly. It's very choppy. A lot of people are getting faked out. So I hope that you are practicing good risk management during this time, especially if you are a day trader or leverage trader. And now there is a lot of astrology that is going to be going on between now and the new moon. I'm already going to talk about some things a little bit further on as well, because there's just some really important aspects happening. But I'm going to keep it simple and show you guys the main things that I believe we should be keeping an eye out on, and the main dates that we may want to have just marked up in our charts and then back it with the technicals as we get closer and closer to these dates, right? Quick recap of just looking at where it is that we are now. So I'm recording today, the 21st of August, looking at Bitcoin's natal. There's honestly not too much new that's still playing out from that last full moon analysis that I gave you guys. We have Mars and Jupiter that are square right now, the natal Uranus of Bitcoin. Mars is also square the natal Saturn of Bitcoin, as last discussed. So that's just creating a lot of restriction. One thing I'll add now is that Mercury retrograde now is in direct opposition to Bitcoin's natal Neptune. So I'd be really careful here with news, a lot of fake news, a lot of news that's really just being created to make noise and to make you emotional. I mean, the news always is doing that, but here, like more than ever, especially if there's any major news right now in regards to crypto, Bitcoin, I would just be really careful because it's just an illusion, and let's not put too much of our energy there. Now, what's really important to keep in mind is as of the 28th of August, we are ending Mercury retrograde. Now, a lot of people think, yay, Mercury retrograde is done. But no, there is actually something that is the post-shadow of Mercury retrograde. Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, anything tech is impacted by this. So even regarding like news and fake news, and even potentially these constant fake outs that we're getting, I would keep in the back of my mind that we are not fully out of that Mercury retrograde everything until the 11th of September. Now, another really important thing to keep in mind is that we are now 1 month in. We are in the window 1 month in to the first eclipse that is coming up in this next eclipse cycle, or in this next eclipse season. So we are already starting to see and feel, and this is at not just for crypto, but like at a macro, like a whole world level, we are already starting to feel and see the leading up to the events of what may occur around this lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 17th of September. What's important to know is that already eclipses in themselves are a time of unveiling. This is when things that have been hidden come to light. This is even when scandals come to light. Also during eclipses is like when a lot of major breakups happen. So already sending you all love and hopefully happiness and peace during this time. But more importantly, this eclipse is occurring in Pisces, okay? And the ruling planet of Pisces is Neptune. What did we just talk about? Well, Neptune is all about illusions, delusions. It's also very spiritual. During this time, I would just be so far away from chaos, news, drama. And honestly, this is also where, with greater narratives that may be starting to surface around the world, I won't speak on here exactly what we're talking about, but just start reading the news and another potential something that might be arising and coming up right before the election. Anyway, there's just a lot of fakeness that is being created. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'll continue to preach it. Please make sure, and I say this with so much love, don't follow mainstream news. Go and watch independent journalists and people that are not getting paid or have a big daddy corporation behind them, paying them to say certain things, post certain things. So this is just such a time to be selective with what you are receiving and allowing into you. And also as traders and investors, we don't want this confusion for us and our mindsets while we are trading and investing. So this lunar eclipse, the energy is already starting to be felt now. Now, the other important date is the 1st of September. Now, the 1st of September is an interesting date because what a lot of people are talking about is the current Pluto in retrograde, which will be going into Capricorn. So on the 1st of September, we see that the planet Pluto, that's been in retrograde, moving backwards in Aquarius, now is going to start going back into Capricorn. Now, Pluto, that means that Pluto is going to be at 29 degrees. This is a critical aspect. It's an intense aspect. And on top of that, it's actually going to be conjunct the natal Jupiter of Bitcoin. Jupiter is all about the expansion, the wealth of Bitcoin in this case. And Pluto comes to death, rebirth, and transform. Now, what's going to happen exactly because of that? We don't know. We don't know if that's going to be positive or less positive for Bitcoin's price. I actually don't feel like it's going to be anything too significant until the 12th of October, when then Pluto will be direct in Capricorn and conjunct Jupiter. And that in the past has been extremely favorable. So until that October 12th, we don't know. Also on the 1st of September, we're still going to be in that post Mercury shadow retrograde. But one thing that I will say is that this is the last time that Pluto is going into Capricorn for I don't know how many years, 20 something years times 12 zodiac signs. So there's going to be a while until we see that again. But with Pluto doing its last little move into Capricorn, I continue to see this as like the final, like turning off the light, the last like switch on the old constructs, on the old systems that we have had, especially the ones that were created with that Pluto and Capricorn energy since 2008. There is a major, major shift happening, and this is kind of the last window. So there's talks of, maybe potential, we may see more bank collapses or older financial systems that are just not meant to be coming into this new age with us. And it's not like they're going to collapse overnight. I mean, they might. Nothing surprises us anymore, right? But this may really be the final start to the end. I'd be watching out for some of those developments as well. Now, I think what we need to talk a little bit more about also on the 1st of September is that the planet Uranus is going in retrograde. Uranus is currently transiting through Taurus, but on the 1st, it's going to go in retrograde. We love Uranus. Uranus is like the planet for financial astrology. I love it because it creates the breakouts. It makes the big moves. We're like, yay, finally. Like the emoji that's like the little like stick figure, and it's got the stick and it's like poking Bitcoin to be like, come on, Bitcoin, do something. Well, Uranus is, I don't know, the bulldozer that comes and makes it do something. So we're excited for that. So in saying that, on that 1st of September, I didn't put a specific time, but at some point throughout that day, Uranus is going to go retrograde, moving back this way, right as we thought that it was about to move out of that 10th house of regulation. And every time I see 10th house, I just see like Gary Gensler pop up in my head. But yeah, that tells you a lot about the 10th house. For those that don't know Gary Gensler, that is the current chairman of the SEC in the United States. So just as we thought Uranus was finally going to get out of there, nope, it's going to be retrograding and staying in Taurus in that 10th house. So even here, what does that mean? I mean, we don't know exactly which direction it's going to go in. All that we know is that we can prepare for a major shift around this time. Uranus, once again, like really just like shakes up and creates these unexpected events. And this could also signal a change in trend direction. So that's on the 1st of September. And what I also find interesting is that coming up just a couple days after that, on the 5th of September, we have what's called Mercury's greatest elongation. Let me get up a picture. Okay, so here's a great picture just for those that are like me and they're little astro nerds. So what Mercury's greatest elongation is when Mercury is at the point either west or east and furthest away from the Earth. Okay, so quick astronomy lesson, but all the planets revolve around the sun. And the Earth also is revolving around the sun, and Mercury is revolving around the sun. And so when the Earth and Mercury, as they revolve around the sun, they are the longest distance away from each other. That is when we have a Mercury greatest elongation, either east or west. I personally don't look too much into the east or the west. I know some financial astrologers do, but what's important for us, oh, and quick side note before I forget, the moon and our moon, because I don't know if you know, there's actually so many moons. Like Earth has a moon and our moon rotates around our Earth while the Earth is rotating around the sun. I think, like, for example, like Venus, I think Venus has like 6 or 7 moons. So those moons are Venus's moons and they go around Venus. So just so you know, fun facts, Astro geeks. But okay, so why is Mercury's greatest elongation important as financial astrologers? We tend to find that when there is Mercury's greatest elongation, like we were just talking about with Uranus going retrograde, when we say that this could be a signal of a change in trend, Mercury's greatest elongation tends to be a signal for that as well in financial astrology. So in saying that, between that 1st of September with Uranus going into retrograde, and as we approach the 5th of September with Mercury's greatest elongation, it could be that we see some significant change in trend. Which, I mean, like I said, would be nice. Like, come on in, bulldozer Uranus. Let's make something happen. I mean, we've still got a while away. We're only at the 21st of August today until then, but let's see. So I would say that those are the most important events as we then approach the new moon in Virgo on the 2nd of September. Now let's talk about this, because normally we love a new moon. A new moon creates local tops for Bitcoin. It brings price up. But like I said at the start, this is like quite a interesting time in the cosmos, because I'm just quickly going to point out, here we have the new moon, and we'll talk about that soon. But we've got Mercury at this point in its post-shadow retrograde. We have Uranus in retrograde. We have Chiron in retrograde. We have Neptune in retrograde. We have Saturn in retrograde. And we have Pluto in retrograde. If there is not a more like reset moment than this, like, I don't know when it is. So it's an interesting new moon. Now, on top of that, historically, when the moon is in Virgo, this is the most unfavorable position for the moon to be in for Bitcoin. Bitcoin just doesn't like the moon being in Virgo. It's its most unfavorable spot. And I don't want to sit here. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I just sound so bearish. I don't want to be. I am bullish long term. I'm just looking at this astrology and it just doesn't look fantastic. So there are a few positive things in there. And long term, a lot of this is setting up so beautifully for the long term. But let's look at kind of what we have coming up now for this new moon in Virgo. So as mentioned, first of all, this new moon is here and it's occurring in Bitcoin's natal 2nd house. The 2nd house has everything to do with money, trade, interest rates, the overall economy. And that already goes to set this tone to let us know that around this time, there's going to be some important things with Bitcoin and its financial matters. Now, also, we can look at that there is this beautiful trine with the natal sun of Bitcoin. So, you know, while maybe Bitcoin doesn't love the moon being in Virgo, this gives it a more positive outlook. And maybe I would look at this, especially because it's trining with the natal sun, which is about its long-term outlook, its long-term goals, its foundation. Maybe this is about like this foundational strength. So I'll already say, like, I feel like there's a lot of like stabilization happening here. Now, as you can already see from this aspect chart, there's a lot happening here, but let's focus down once again on the simple, most important things that stand out. Starting off with Uranus. So we can see that Uranus in retrograde is going to be trying the natal Jupiter of Bitcoin. This can be positive, but we continue to see Jupiter then be square the natal Saturn and square the natal Uranus of Bitcoin. And this just makes it very restrictive. It's like any of like the positive stuff it like might want to do, it's like, but only in this box. So then we have Pluto, which like we mentioned is at 29 degrees conjunct the natal Jupiter of Bitcoin. And especially with it being at 29 degrees, this just adds to the instability, and it could indicate further transformations in Bitcoin and in Bitcoin's value, seeing as it's Jupiter. Now, speaking of value and of price, let's look at Venus. So Venus is going to be in opposition to the natal moon, trine the natal Mercury, and square the natal Mars of Bitcoin. This just gives me vibes of an extremely choppy market, lots of indecision, lots of people just being conflicted between optimism and underlying tension with Mars. So that's just a whole lot of volatility. And then, I mean, with Mars being trine natal Venus, this could bring in some positivity, and that could maybe help us keep price up without any significant drops, as that is more of a positive thing. But Mars overall indicates volatility in Bitcoin's money, so its price. Look, overall, I have to say that this Mercury retrograde period is hitting hard, and so I don't see us coming out of that while we are in that post-shadow retrograde until the 11th of September. We might just not see any significant move or direction until we are out of this. And I feel like overall, it's just like a period where they're just continuing to shake people out, creating confusion, mixed emotions, especially as we approach those eclipses, which are going to be quite significant. But more on those eclipses in the next Starbite segment, so stay tuned. And now for my Astro lovers, I want to give you guys a few personal tips and maybe to prepare you around this time of the Virgo new moon as we approach it. Obviously, you guys know if you're connected with me on Instagram in the channel, Moon and Money Blasts, I will be updating you guys right around every moon like I always do. So let's talk a bit about this new moon, which is happening at 11 degrees of Virgo, while we have all of these retrogrades going on. I mean, Mercury coming out of the full Mercury retrograde. We have Uranus, Chiron, Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto all in retrograde during this time. This signals a profound period of introspection, reevaluation, and recalibration. Virgo, the energy of Virgo, if you know the color personalities, I love the color personalities. I always think about like Virgo being like the color green. Like it is very organized, it is very set, it very much like has, I just think of it like somebody that like loves color coding too, and like post-it notes and lists, like they love lists. I have definitely a part of that in me. So Virgo emphasizes details, organization, health. It's a big one on health, as we spoke about with Mercury being in retrograde during Virgo as well, and like not being great for pets. It's also a sign of pets and for health. And Virgo is also a lot about self-improvement. Now, normally a new moon is very outwardly, it's about setting intentions, creating the new, but with so many retrogrades going on, also as we approach this eclipse season and just very much like this chaotic time all around the world, this is a time for a lot of inward reflection. And it might also be a time to reassess past actions and make any necessary adjustments rather than just continuing to push on forward and be aggressive moving forward. So especially because of Virgo energy, if you need to fine tune and reassess the specific things, it could be very much related to your health routines, your work habit, your day-to-day, and your personal growth. With Chiron, Neptune, and Pluto in retrograde during this time as well, this could be a really great time for healing and transformation. So a great time to stop and reflect at those really deep wounds that you may have, and then go and release these old patterns, identify the old patterns. Time to release and let go of them. It's time to focus on that inner work, the emotional healing, and just overall letting go of what no longer serves you. Sounds a lot more like full moon vibes, right? But that's what like this new moon is. It's a bit of a different one. Now, with Uranus being in retrograde, which creates a lot of unexpected changes. Some of these unexpected changes may surface into your life. So it's really time to be ready to adapt and just be prepared for any significant changes. Also remember that Virgo is an earth sign, so it's very much about helping you to get grounded, and it really invites you as well to get organized, declutter, which is very much like a energy of the new. So the new moon can very much, or this new moon in particular, can be very much of like, okay, time for some cleaning and getting rid of things before you step into the new moon cycle and the new seasons that are also coming up as we step into September. And now let me give you some journal prompts, which, yeah, you can do them on the new moon. But as I've been personally playing with this as well myself, I feel like as I approach that moon, I can get ready with pre-journal prompts and then revisit them during that moon as well, whether it's a full moon or a new moon. That's why I wanted to give it to you guys in advance. Prompts can be, what areas of my life need refinement and improvement? How can I create a plan to address these areas step by step? What old wounds or emotional patterns am I ready to heal? How can I nurture myself through this process of release? How can I embrace patience and flexibility during this period, especially with all the retrogrades? What lessons can I learn from the delays or challenges I am experiencing? What health routines or habits need reevaluation? How can I better support my physical and mental well-being? Where in my life am I resisting change? How can I be more open to new perspectives and approaches? And last but not least, what habits, beliefs, or situations no longer serve my highest good? How can I begin to release them with grace? So lots to reflect on between now and the upcoming new moon in Virgo. I hope that this video has helped you with some key dates that you can keep an eye out on and just mark up in your chart. So as we approach those dates, you can then prepare for them, whether it is that you are doing technical analysis, fundamental analysis, whatever analysis it is that you use. There are so many different types of analyses, as you can see with financial astrology. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but neither is technical. So when we put the two together, that's when we can get a much better outcome. So with that, I hope that you had an incredible full moon in Aquarius. I hope that you are giving yourself lots of love and grace and patience during this crazy Mercury retrograde. Be careful with your mind, protect your energy, protect your heart as we get closer to these eclipses with a lot of chaos and a lot being brought to the surface and things being brought finally into the light. And last but not least, I wish you a super happy new moon in Virgo. Flow wealthy.